Megan Fox has the story.
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox. Megan Fox, a national journalist.
Mastodon. I will never be able to say that.
It feels like the Flintstones live there.
It does.
Well, don't trust women. I think you just touched on that with your last. That's what they brought. We're going to have to bring back chaperones.
Jesus, no.
Just careful, Carol. Stop! Break! Ooh. Hard right.
How did you screw up a stove, Megan? You're a woman. I thought that was baked into you, like at the genetic level, how to operate kitchen equipment.
And honestly, Megan, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you.
You get Dino hanging out outside chewing on a large bone. I highly recommend being targeted by the New York Times and Rolling Stone for weight loss. And I'd say, keep it coming. I need to lose 20 more. Please, keep it coming.
Explain to me, Megan, why in this country not have a holiday once a year? That's the time you vote. If you don't show up and vote, up your ass. You don't get another chance. You don't get, I don't care if you're in the hospital. Crawl to the stake, crawl there. But that's it, 1 day, 12 hours, and then you're done. And you count them that day, and that night you know who the hell won.
I will eat you alive. You want to tangle? You want to go?
The only thing going through my head is, what are you going to do when Megan Fox runs wild on you, brother?
He made a deal with the devil. She's the devil.
He wants that.
Oh, God. Gross! Oh! All right. Penalty box for Slug. Yep.
Of a mile.
Are you ready to behave yourself now, Slug?
This frustrating rep.
Are you ready to behave yourself? Repossessed puppies? I'm hiding pork chop. Have you seen his little pork chop? Oh my God, pork chop is the cutest.
That sounds bad.
Have you seen it?
Pork. It's pork.
Though you may be tempted, do not contact any person or persons mentioned on this stream. Do not even think about contacting anyone who may be the topic of the daily news. If you should do that, the host will question your IQ, possibly call you names, and mock you for disobeying these basic rules of decency.
All the best! Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the show. It's me, Megan Fox. I'm here, and guess who's here with me? It's been a while. It's been a minute, but Dr. Goodhair, Dr. Joe Corcoran, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great, Megan. Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah, we hear you good.
I'm good. It's a beautiful day so far in Florida. It's about to get real rainy and not by Rochester standards, but it's going to get cold too. So I'm celebrating right now.
We've been in a deep freeze for weeks, and it's never ending. It just doesn't stop. I'm constantly cold. I put on a spring blouse today because I was like, you know what? I can't take it anymore. I need some flowers. I need something to remind me of warm weather. I'm freezing all the time. It is just, it's terrible here. I put together, by the way, Joe, I know. So the appeal was last week, the oral arguments in the Maya Kowalski case. It was Wednesday. I covered it live. You were in the courtroom, but I put together a little video that I wanted to show the chat. This was literally Jay Hatch's arguments. And yes, I've taken a little bit of liberty just by clipping.
Oh, no.
I've clipped a few things.
Is it meme? I'm going to guess that this is meme worthy.
It should. Yeah. I mean, this was their best argument. Really, if this was their best argument, we have a serious problem. And by the way, folks, make sure that you share this stream. I don't think anyone knows I'm live right now. I don't know, because I don't normally go live. Make sure that you share, that you let people know. In fact, if Brad's out there, would you post it in locals? I forgot to do that. Anyway, I've put together this little clip of Jay Hatch's arguments, and I couldn't believe they said some of the things they said.
Yeah.
I really couldn't. So let's
Yeah.
take a little look at this video that I've put together, shall we?
And
Kidnapped and tortured a little girl in order to kill her mother. He caused the suicide of a non-patient, engage in insurance fraud, and steal from our families. Dr. Sally Smith is going around and asking questions, and she's rude, and she's weird, and she's got this raspy cigarette voice, and I'm trying to clean up my child, and she's asking me all these questions that don't really seem related to what we're there for. That's core investigative child protection activity, to separate a child from a parent. It is always traumatic, it is always awful, it is always terrible. And that ingredient is present in every single child protective action that the state and pediatricians and social workers ever take to separate a child from a parent. It is always traumatic, it is always awful, it is always terrible. Fierce and intense blowback. People are angry about this, and if this is allowed to go to a jury will be angry about this. And the testimony at trial amounted to, if you're going to accuse someone of child abuse, you had better be right. And the entire history of child welfare law is that is fundamentally wrong. These are always awful, terrible, raw, sensitive. This is a hospital that lies, cheats, and steals from its patients. It's rotten to the core.
I don't think they thought about how this would have what they were giving us with the clipping, you know?
Well, Megan, if this is your audition tape for becoming an editor at CBS 60 Minutes,
it's pretty good.
I would hire you without even looking at your resume, babe. This is some ultra genius editing.
Yeah, well, look, you really have to think about these things when you're in the public eye, that the things that you say can be clipped and used against you, sir.
Yeah. It's funny. I actually learned that in the first time that I ever, I was ever quoted in the newspaper in a policy discussion. So you're right. This is quite the mashup, young lady. Good job.
As soon as he said those things, I was like, oh, they're not going to like what happens after this.
Well, I will tell you that in the courtroom, so there weren't many people there. It was really just the principals, and there were very, very few other people. But I will tell you that when he used those adjectives to describe Sally Smith, I wasn't the only one who went, you kind of had to hide your face, because the three judges are up on the dais and they're looking out at the gallery as well as the attorneys, and so you kind of had to be try to maintain a poker face. But that one, I was gagging.
I was shocked by that.
Yeah.
I was shocked that they admitted she was weird and rude and bad. Like, what?
With the raspy cigarette voice.
With the raspy cigarette voice. What the heck? Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, okay, so the oral arguments, I thought Jay Hatch did a terrible job, actually. I thought that they sounded like spoiled grapes, that this is all a bunch of, they're just pissed off that the jury was so angry. But the admissions in this little mashup I did are really quite something. I want to go back through it, actually, and stop and comment on what he's actually saying. And we will watch a little bit of it in the full context. But really, just let's hear it again.
That kidnapped and tortured a little girl in order to kill her mother.
Okay, that actually happened. The kidnapping and the torturing for the 7 days happened. And when he says in order to kill her mother, no, that maybe wasn't their goal, but they sure didn't care if that was going to be the end result. And in fact, at least one of them sent a text message to another one saying, I predicted this was going to happen. I knew it.
Yeah. And Megan, their arguments were weak, but what did they have to work with, right? When you talk about a mandate from the jury, 44 issues on the juror questionnaire and 44-0 in favor of the Kowalski family, right? So, and really what they spent a lot of time trying to do was to challenge and relitigate what had already been decided by the jury. And, if, first of all, you are correct that the majority of, and this, full disclosure, this was my first time ever physically in an appellate courtroom. I'm geeky enough to actually listen to the audio of Supreme Court arguments. So
I do too. Oh my gosh, me too.
I think it's fascinating. I really do. and you made a point in your live stream that, these really are some of the best and brightest attorneys, and who are, so just hearing how they process the information and present a cogent argument is fascinating to me. But, this, when the jury decides 44-0, if you're going to try to challenge their decision making, you've got to present some basis in where they misinterpreted the law. And Mr. Cycleleather challenged a lot, did not present a lot of legal malpractice on the part of the jury. He made a lot of accusations, but didn't really do a lot to support it. And I agree with you. I think that Mr. Tanner, representing the Kowalskis, really did a very, very smart job of, he was writing down questions. When Mr. Cycleleather was presenting his case, I was sitting behind Mike Tanner and his group, and they were writing down questions. And how he started was, Judge Smith, I'd like to answer your questions. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
boom,
yeah, yeah. I loved that because while what is this guy's name? I don't even know.
Cycleleather. S-T-I-K-E leather.
Cycleleather?
Correct.
Derek Cycleleather.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And this guy,
that's a
listen. But I'll tell you, he's a very accomplished attorney.
Oh, I'm sure. Wait, you don't get the
has
appellate level without being accomplished. But this just goes to show how little J. Hatch has to go on.
That's
if
the
this
point.
is the argument that he's making, especially when you're trying to relitigate what the jury's already decided. There were facts that were found in this case, and the jury is the fact finder. So, for instance, it was very interesting to me that the judges, especially the female judge on the panel, she was like, but we have to take these things as it happened. We have to take this as the emotional distress and all of that, which the jury decided did happen. It did happen. So you're telling me that that's immune? Like you can just emotionally distress your patients? And he was like, if it's a real tort, no, but basically saying we're trying to convince you that this wasn't real, that none of this really happened. It was all smoke and mirrors by Maya Kowalski's attorneys, not the testimony of the witnesses, not the testimony of Maya and her family, not the actual experience of and you can't relitigate. So this is the thing. Folks, I know we're kind of ahead of ourselves. I didn't even introduce this case. And some of you are like, what the hell even is this case? We're talking about J. Hatch, Johns Hopkins, All Children's Hospital. And we call them John Shopkins here because they were obsessed with giving Maya Shopkins. John Shopkins All Prisoners Hospital. We're talking about their appeal. They appealed the $260 million verdict that a jury awarded Maya Kowalski and her family for the hell and torture that J. Hatch put her through when they took her from her family, alleging child abuse, alleging Munchausen syndrome by proxy when they never tested or had her mother evaluated in any way. They alleged that this mother was making her child sick. Turns out Maya Kowalski has CRPS, which is a rare pain disorder. And they not only didn't treat that pain disorder, but the things they did to her made it worse. They exacerbated her condition. And they kept her away from her mother for, 10 months?
Yeah, 100 days.
100 days. But this case was specifically about 7 days. It was specifically about the 7-day window when they had no authority under the state to do so. So they kidnapped and tortured a little girl, and her mother ended up committing suicide. And there is a Netflix documentary on it. It's called Take Care of Maya. And you should absolutely watch it. You can also go back to my playlist because we covered the entire trial here on this channel. And Dr. Corcoran was the star witness who destroyed J. Hatch's,
I brought it.
Who destroyed J. Hatch's defense that they were just doing their jobs. It turns out that Dr. Corcoran, he knows a lot about administration in hospitals. And it turns out that they did not just do their jobs, they actually failed to do their jobs. And his testimony really provided the jury with a real overview of what actually happened. Where the heck is my meme? I'm looking for your meme. I can't find it. Where's my doctor? There it is. This is Dr. Joe on the stand, just blowing up Jay Hatch's narrative that they were following their protocols. Of course, their protocols were all wrong. They had no communication in the hospital. Nobody was doing what they were supposed to be doing. And Dr. Corcoran, he had the goods. And I know that I don't know if you've been able to talk about any of it. How's your professional life?
And I will point out that you, Megan Fox, mocked me as a soccer mom. But
did I?
Oh, heck yeah, you did. Oh yeah, yeah.
I do a lot of stupid things, Joe.
Yeah.
I don't.
I can't remember the exact quote.
I've joined you, but I even made a short about this. These stupid mugs.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, I mean,
they are great though.
I was on the stand for literally hours each time. I was on the stand 4 different times, and each of those appearances were for prolonged lengths of time, hours, and so. Number one, I drink a lot of water anyway because it's a healthy thing. So, RFK Jr., I'm doing the right thing. But it's these things really are pretty amazing. I mean, we'll go out in the Florida sun on a boat and still have ice at the bottom.
Ice, I know, right? It's worth it for the how long the ice lasts. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
The other
but
day
you did give me a little bit of soccer mom vibe thing.
Did I? Well,
all is forgiven. All is forgiven.
I gave Greg a lot of hell too. I was like, my God, this guy is slow. It took me a while to come around to Mr. Anderson and his style. But once I did, I was like, oh my God, he's a genius.
Yeah, Greg's a remarkably talented attorney, and I was talking with a friend. Steve Heath, who testified in the damages segment, and was actually the one that introduced me to Greg and Nick and got me involved. We were having a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about what a talented litigator Greg is, because he gets you as a witness, he gets you to say things, and then finds ways to use your words against you in cross-examination. He's remarkably talented as a litigator, for sure.
Well, he really had this Columbo vibe that I didn't catch on to for a long time. And I actually feel like I'm the one who's dumb for not seeing it. There were people who were saying to me, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. You're gonna see it eventually. And I was like, oh, I can't take it anymore. Greg, please speed up. But the truth is that his style he's like a hammer when he needs to be. And the bumbling thing, I think, is good for the jury. The jury starts to feel sorry for you at some point.
Yeah.
And then and then you hit them,
Yeah. And I can't remember. I referred to Greg as Columbo, and Nick was Joe Friday, just the facts man, right?
Yeah.
And I'm embarrassed to say that there were members of the team Maya that didn't know who either one was. So I kind of felt like the old dude, right?
Oh God. That's funny.
Yeah.
But so their arguments, let's hear a little bit more of this, because there's so much in these clips that I pulled. There's so much to discuss. It's insane.
Yeah. Cause the suicide of a non-patient, engage in insurance fraud, and steal from our families.
Engaged in insurance fraud to steal from our families. Now, they made the argument that you guys that the Maya's team didn't really even believe that accusation because they only asked for $1 from the jury. I don't know what the legal strategy was to that, but I think just the idea that you charged the insurance company, you charged this man, Jack Kowalski's insurance company, what was it, $500,000 for CRPS treatment, but you didn't treat her for CRPS, and you claimed she didn't have it. You said she had a psychological disorder or her mother was making her sick. How is that not insurance fraud? I will never understand it.
Sorry, I've got
Okay, it's okay. I think he has a workman
So
there.
no. I'm actually in the final glide path for MacDill Air Force Base, now known as Joint
Oh,
Base
nice.
MacDill. So there was a refueling tanker going over top. I always get anxious when the number of flights increases. I hope they're training, but not for anything, scary. So, because I do have a draft eligible age son,
Oh boy.
right? So,
yeah.
So anyway,
But they claim it's not insurance fraud. It's like, excuse me, what?
Well,
you said she didn't have it.
Yeah, and again, it was a decision that the jury made that it did meet the standard.
Right.
But all they're saying is, well, they asked for $1 and they got $5 million. What?
But the jury's allowed to do that.
They never made the question, right? They never challenged why it wasn't insurance fraud, right?
Right.
They never pointed to a legal standard that wasn't met, but the jury found for it anyway, right? So again, that was kind of trying to relitigate what had already been decided in this 44-0 decision. So I get it, and that didn't make a headline, but it made the story. I was sitting behind the reporter from the Tampa Bay Times, and that made it into his reporting about the case, right? So it reads very sympathetically, but to 3 appellate judges, I don't think there was any meat on that bone.
Well, him saying that they had no evidence that this happened is just not true. Jack has medical bills and coding on the bills that say CRPS. How is that not evidence? He kept saying they could show no evidence of this. There was no evidence. And you know what? This is not we're not relitigating this trial right now, sir. So if you're telling these appellate court judges there was no evidence, how are they supposed to know? They don't have access to all the evidence, and they're not even allowed to look at that anyway, because that is something totally separate from the issues you're supposed to bring before an appellate court. I just thought this was a crappy argument, just a very bad
what did he have
argument
to work with? What else could he have brought forward? No, I'm asking sincerely, what else could he have brought forward? And the interesting thing to me, and this was a point that I brought up as this was, in the developmental phase of prepping the appeal, is the biggest challenge, and the one that grabs all the headlines, is, well, we are mandatory reporters, and we, by law, have to call in when we have concerns. Number one, that part of Chapter 30, and in Florida statute, it's Chapter 39, right? And if you are a mandatory reporter, and if you exercise that responsibility, you do and legitimately should have access to immunity. Otherwise, nobody would report, because they're going to get their butts sued by every irate parent, right? So, but the point was that they called it in.
Yeah, and it was unfounded.
DCF found that there was nothing there.
Nothing there.
Couple days later, with Sally Smith helping them craft the language, they refiled. But then, does that excuse 100 days of treatment, or does it protect decisions made in the heat of battle in those first days or even weeks?
They use the immunity like a shield to do whatever they want. And he said something in here, and I don't know if I put it in the clip, but he said something where it was like, well, does that mean that, and just because there's immunity, that anything goes once we have custody? No. Well, no, it does, though. That's what he did. Anything goes was absolutely Jay Hatch's plan there. They knew immunity would protect them. They did not have to worry about what they were doing. That's how they saw it.
And if you'll remember I think it was video testimony from the deposition of Dr. Perno, the VP of Medical Affairs.
Oh, I remember that guy.
I sat in, the sad face.
Oh, here he is.
Yeah, there you go.
That's him. If this is how you know your dog or someone you know has been caught in a sex scandal face.
Yeah. If my
We
dog
had
is
several
ever
of
caught
them.
in a
Look.
sex scandal, I'll look for that face, but I've got bigger issues, right?
Remember, there was this guy made the
Yeah.
same face too. This face
Yeah.
went around at the trial quite a bit.
Well, there was lots of reason to grimace, right? But the statement that Dr. Perno made during his deposition, and I attended that live, was once they sign the consent to treat, I can do anything I want. Now, and then if you look at the consent to treat, it's a 4-page document. There's less than half of a page. Actually, I think it's fewer than 100 words that speak specifically to authorizing treatment. The rest of it is all about risk of HIV and photographs and, kind of tangential issues. But when he made the statement that, hey, you signed that I could treat, I could, I can do anything I want. I mean, my jaw figuratively hit the table.
So did ours. I remember screaming, hearing that, going, "Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah.
You did anybody know that when you sign that thing, that you're signing away that your every right you have to say no?
Yeah.
No, that's not how that works."
And then
consent is an ongoing thing in medical care. You don't just consent to everything, a blanket consent to you can do whatever you want to me now. Do you?
And that I thought was the most painful part of Judge Smith's queries was didn't the outside court, the child abuse court, didn't the dependency court allow and stipulate that the parents have a say in the treatment?
They did.
And
they were never asked. They were never asked.
No ability to shoot that down, right?
They were supposed to have say in her medical care, and they were never asked. And in fact, when Beata tried to bring attention to the staff about things that they weren't doing correctly, like for instance, not flushing her port regularly, they ignored her. They refused to do what she asked. And that was not their mandate. The juvenile court never said they could just ignore the parental concerns.
Right.
They were supposed to have a say in what was going on, and they didn't. Right. They locked them out completely.
Yeah. And of course, the problem of Dr. Perno's approach that, hey, you signed, we can do whatever we want, was what I really shined the light on, was that there was no supervision, right? Everything was in this echo chamber of Maya's teams, right? They had all these teams that made decisions. And, it's like, I think it was Kenny in South Park said, well, if everybody's special, then nobody's special, right? And if the teams are making the decisions, then you're telling me that nobody's responsible for making decisions, right? So, and then there was no oversight by Dr. Perno as the chief physician of the hospital. There was no oversight by Dr. Napolitano, who is the chair of the biggest department, all of whom reported up in Maya's case to the chair of the department. There was no accountability. There was no activity to demonstrate that there was regular reporting between the risk managers who were making the decisions for so much of Maya's care, including interpreting the order of the dependency court, but and their supervisor, Jackie Crane, who was the chief legal officer, right? And the org chart demonstrated a solid line responsibility there. And then to make matters even worse still, there was no reporting of this case up to the CEO, or if there was no action taken and no documentation about it. And even less so to the board, which ultimately has the accountability. So this complete breakdown and this sequestering of the care making decisions, that was really what I brought forward. And that is so problematic, right? It's
so problematic.
Megan, it's like sending your kids out to build a fire and not even bothering to look to see what's going on out there. Right?
And then when we know about what the immediate jeopardy and all the other problems that they were having, and it's like, yeah, clearly there was no supervision going on at this hospital. I don't know what that board did, but I have a feeling it was like a coffee club. Like, we get together, we drink coffee, we eat donuts, we talk about donors, probably, like raising money.
And I'll be honest with you, my opinion is that I don't put a lot of accountability on the level of the board, because they only get what they know
what
about.
they're told. Yeah.
So
what can they do if they haven't been told? True. But then it also, people like Dr. Perno should not be in those positions. A person like that who has such a laissez-faire attitude towards patient safety, patient happiness. I just don't want a person like that in charge of medical care. I feel like his whole attitude while he was testifying was just like, whatever. I just didn't like that. And I think that it played really badly for them in front of the jury. And, that's just too damn bad, Jay Hatch. Hire better people that know how to testify in these things. And you lost. All right. There's more in here. There's so much.
Dr. Sally Smith is
or at
going
least
around
hire a
asking-
CEO who makes that the job's goal, right?
Right.
You've got to ensure quality and keep patients safe.
Yep.
questions, and she's rude and she's weird and she's got this raspy cigarette voice, and I'm trying to clean up my child and she's asking me all these questions that don't really seem related to what we're there for. That's core investigative child protection activity.
I love this.
Oh
Being weird and rude and annoying and asking rude questions is core child protective activities. I did not edit that. Folks, that is unedited. That is right out of his own mouth. He said, just because she's weird and rude and has a raspy cigarette voice, these are core child protection activities. Holy shit. Did anybody actually realize that it's important for your child welfare workers to be weird and rude? What?
And raspy.
Where's my Sally Smith voice?
Oh my God. But my
name is Dr. Sally Smith. Is it working? Is the voice working?
Yeah.
So good.
So what? But
I work at J Hatch. We drop kids constantly.
And you know what I thought was interesting? Again, here is the genius of Mike Tanner. In rebuttal, or in his 30 minutes. And by the way, the second DCA typically does not allow arguments to go on for 30 minutes. It's usually 15 or 20. J Hatch requested an hour to present their counter, and at the end of the day, the judges awarded them 30 minutes, so that was a long hearing by second DCA standards. Just because I know you asked about that when you live streamed it.
It's a quick process. I also, what I was really struck by was that the justices there, the judges, they interrupted him multiple times, and they said, and at one point, one of them said, "Please answer the question, or I'm going to hear about it later," from the other judges. He's like, "Please answer her question. Can you please just answer the question?" And he couldn't answer the questions, which is why it was so great that Tanner had his entire, let me start by answering all of your questions.
Right.
I just loved that.
Yeah. And it was interesting that, Mr. Steicheleather got interrupted with queries from the judges approximately 24 times in a 30-minute, actually a 25-minute presentation, because he reserved time for rebuttal. And not one single query from Mr. Tanner. No request for clarification, nothing. And he even said,
he even asked,
I have another point to make, but before I do, do you have any questions?
Nope. And that's usually a good sign that you're winning. When you keep getting interrupted by the judges, mostly they're poking holes in your case, and they're asking you to fight for it. And I don't think he did a great job. I think he did the best with what he had. I mean, this is not a great appeal. But do you think, and I think if they lose this appeal, I think they're going to go higher.
I agree.
Which is really
they're not going to go quietly into the night. However, there's a couple of different things that can come out of here. Okay, so a decision will come down from the Second District Court of Appeals, and the decision can take on a couple of different forms. If they say The motions are denied, and here are the points of law. That, so that kind of a narrative, that kind of a multi-page finding would give Jay Hatch the platform to go to Tallahassee before the Florida Supreme Court. Okay. The whole question of changing, asking the judges to essentially reinterpret Chapter 39 immunity, that's really the job of the Florida legislature.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I thought that was really strange that they decided their immunity. They were going to argue immunity here.
Yeah, but the other outcome that would be very, very good for Team Maya and very, very hurtful for Team Jay Hatch is if they simply issue a one-page that says the motion is denied without comment. If they do that, Jay Hatch has nothing to argue to the Supremes.
Well, I hope that's what they do, because my God, this family has been through enough. They have been nearly bankrupted, or maybe bankrupted by these legal fees. They have had no payment from Jay Hatch. Interest is accruing every day at the rate of, I think we're at around 20 million now in interest.
Yeah.
It is outrageous to me. This is such, the other thing. Oh my God. At the end of the hearing, I just remembered that this happened. At the very end of the hearing, did you hear the judge who says right before he walks out, very sad case? Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
Look at this. Look at this. Hold on.
I was about 8 or 9 rows back. So
I'm going to find it, because this was kind of shocking to me.
That error or the other two errors we've identified affected the outcome, we are entitled to a new trial. For that reason, the hospital asked for a new trial. It does not include the suicide claims or the fraud claims, and properly applies Chapter 39. Thank you so much for your generosity.
A very sad case. Yeah, and that's your whole problem, Jay Hatch, is that you picked this horrific once in a lifetime kind of case to make your appeals arguments on, when you should have just called it quits. You should have cut your losses and tried to repair the public image. Because right now we do view you as kitty stealers who are unrepentant. You're unrepentant child nappers who torture kids. That is how the public views you, because you won't even say you were sorry.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I think I've mentioned this when you and I talked back in the day. I did not even, I prepared, but I didn't really start studying for the final until after jury selection was completed, because I couldn't believe that Jay Hatch wanted this to go before a jury. I know that they could have. Hubris. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know what legal advice they were getting, but obviously it was flawed, because they ended up with a generational verdict, right? 44-0, 261 million, reduced to 208.5. After
a history-making verdict,
for sure, and But I and think about it. Take Care of Maya was the #1 documentary on Netflix that summer, right? And with all of that public awareness, and listen, Take Care of Maya was very sympathetic to the Kowalski family and not very sympathetic to Jay Hatch. I get it, but that wasn't Greg Anderson, out there talking about it. That was an independent filmmaker. That was their perspective. That's why they put together the story, the narrative. And that was all out there, seen by millions of people, right? I can't believe that Jay Hatch didn't make a serious attempt at settling this, because, clearly based against a $208 million judgment, I think they could have gotten off for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, I agree. And also, but it should show you they wouldn't even try to mediate and
No,
settle when they were
no.
supposed to try and get that verdict
Yeah.
down. They
Yeah.
walked away. They had no intention of even
Yeah.
doing what the judge asked. Those of you who are here, by the way, there's 400 of you here right now. Make sure you hit that like button. The likes are down at like 227. You can do better than that. Your thumbs are not broken. Don't even try to tell me that they are. Hit the like button and subscribe. And I set a super chat goal for 10 super chats in the next 20 minutes, and I won't turn on ads. Now, I know you don't want to be interrupted by ads. I don't want to have to monetize this stream. So make sure that you send your Starbucks money in. You don't need that latte this week. That latte will give you extra calories, and it supports a stupid company that gives way too, you're charging you way too much for coffee. That's $7 would be much better spent right here so that I can keep bringing you this amazing content and these incredible guests. So make sure that you send in the super chats. We got 20 more minutes to hit that goal before I turn on ads and annoy you with ads. Okay, so no one wants that. No one wants ads, right, Judge? You like my new grift?
Boy, do you sound like a mom. Wow. Don't make me come back in that back seat.
Don't make me come back there.
Yeah.
I will
one of the
pull
things
this chat over.
I thought that the questions, and all three judges queried Mr. Steichleather's arguments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Judge Black asked 3 or 4 questions.
I liked who's the female judge?
Judge Smith. Judge Smith.
I liked her. So so you can see as we scrub through this, like she interrupts him pretty much in the first couple minutes. Like, here's one right here. Let's see what she's
treatment plan.
You would agree that even with the immunity, that if there were an intervening tortious act by the hospital, that would not be covered under that immunity.
It would depend on what the act is. The problem here is that much of the immune conduct was just labeled tortious. You tortiously.
Well, let's just take the claims that they are, the intentional infliction of emotional distress. If that did indeed play out, then would that be covered under the immunity as you?
And he has to admit no.
I think a true case of intentional infliction of emotional distress would not.
How can he say that this is not a true case? And by the way, her question, that question is so good. She's like, well, taking it as it is, because the jury's already decided there was an intentional emotional infliction of distress.
Right.
You have to take it as the facts that were found.
And again,
I don't see how they win this.
He didn't challenge the legal basis for the jury's decision. He didn't challenge the law on it. What I appreciated about what I appreciated about Judge Smith's questions was, number one, she had the largest number of questions, and her questions on points of law, like you just highlighted in those 2 questions, was very deep and sophisticated. But of the 3 judges, I feel like she really kind of tapped into the humane side of it best. I mean, these are questions like, hey, if this happened to me as a parent, how would I manage it, right? I really think she tapped into that piece that so many of us would think about, without the benefit of going to law school and having a great career like she did and becoming a judge like she did. I think she almost was representing the parents.
I loved what she said about how Jay Hatch not only attacked Beata for this one thing, but for everything she was. Yeah. I thought that was very telling. They went after her career in nursing. They went after her status as a mother. They went after her religion. They went after her language, her culture. This is everything about a person. I need to find that. I think it's right here, actually.
Yeah.
Intentional infliction of emotional distress claim by the estate.
Yes.
Okay. There's the case of Nelson, which I'm sure you're familiar with, because if you're relying on it for the intervening cause of the suicide, that would absolve any liability by the hospital. And so, in looking at Nelson, it allowed a claim of suicide to go to a jury, right? Because it remanded for trial. And so it talked about the difference between one being driven to suicide versus the actions and circumstances, and I'm paraphrasing, but driving one to be mentally ill and then that person on their own volition committing suicide. And I focus on that because that distinction is the issue. I believe the court in that case is why they took it and it became a jury question. Why do we not have that same jury question here, where the facts are that we have the hospital's position was that
Here it is.
Kowalski was, we had the Munchausen, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, by proxy. And so they've already indicated that there's a mental illness there. I believe one of the doctors had mentioned, his name is escaping me now, but I believe one of the doctors had mentioned that she was in some sort of mental state, as maybe had relayed some information to them to that effect early on upon admittance. And then you have, after that, you have, and I realize while they're not direct, some of this isn't direct to her, but you have statements by Nurse Beatty to the husband saying, why don't you divorce her?
Ooh, she did her homework.
Statements that the daughter's faking it. You have, my mic is going out. You have some allegations of interference with her religion, and it was noted that she was extremely religious. And you have them challenging her medical profession as a nurse, and then challenging her as a mom for the way that she treated her daughter. And my point to all of that is that's like everything. As a woman. That's like her whole existence. It wasn't just one thing that she was being challenged on, it was all of those things. Why is that not enough evidence on the issue that was the Nelson that they remanded for, not enough to go to the jury?
Yep, right there. What were you thinking when you heard her ask that question when you were sitting there in that courtroom, Joe? What was going through your head then? Oh, you're muted. Take your mute off. There we go.
Sorry, we had another
That's
another
okay.
refueling jet go by, so I got a little anxious. So again, her question showed, number one, she did her homework, right? She knew the case, she read the briefs, and they were thousands and thousands. I want to say it was over 10,000 pages in the briefs, right? Were submitted with trial testimony and everything else. So she did her homework, and she not only knew the Maya trial, but she had read the cases that Steicheleather's team had built into their appeal, right?
Yeah, she did. She was quoting Nelson and all the other.
Yeah. And, again, this was not the first question that Mr. Steicheleather had been asked to field. And we were 7 minutes into his presentation, right? So, it was very, you got a sense that, I think that his posture started to change during that line of questioning, where he was like, dang, this isn't going the way I thought it was going to go.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, you're in trouble, J-Hat. You in trouble. You in trouble, baby. You better run. Because, oh, boy, she knows. She knows what you did. She doesn't like it. Nobody likes this.
And again, Mr. Steicheleather is a very highly regarded appellate attorney. The guy has, it was interesting. Dr. Kirkpatrick circulated an email to some of the members of Team Maya, and kind of brought out some of the cases that he and his team have won on appeal, and they're impressive, right? So this is a very accomplished attorney. But to your earlier point, Megan, what did the trial give him to work with, right? And again, we talked about this last year. how thoroughly and purposefully Judge Carroll tried to appeal proof the findings.
Oh God, he was so careful. That
wasn't he?
That whole Chapter 39 thing.
Yeah.
And also the suicide claim. I mean, he was like threading the needle on that stuff and by the way, remember that in the, and I think that Tanner brings this up in his arguments, that J. Hatch won they won almost all of their motions to exclude things, to do, all of this stuff they won. And even still, with the deck stacked against Maya Kowalski, the jury still found in her favor. They had excluded all kinds of things on behalf of J. Hatch. Judge Carroll cannot be looked at as doing anything untoward here. I mean, he was one of the best judges that I've ever seen. And if anything, I criticized him for not coming down hard enough on J. Hatch's bad behavior in the courtroom. His judicial temperament is like too chill.
Next level.
He is too chill almost. But you can't criticize him for that. No appellate court is going to criticize a judge for being too circumspect, for being too, too patient.
So I will tell you something very tangential to our current conversation, but I was looking up directions to the courthouse. I thought it was going to be downtown. It was actually the second DCA courtroom is actually in a law school building, which is just north of downtown. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool.
Cool.
I mean, think about it. If you're a student,
if you're a student, you get to just go hang out. Yeah,
right.
That's great.
Right?
That's fun.
Yeah, which is why Stetson University School of Law, their strength is their trial advocacy. I mean, if you come out of Stetson, you know how to argue before a judge. You are trained as a litigator first and foremost. But here's what was interesting. I went on Google Maps, so anybody can do this. Type in second DCA Florida and look at the reviews. And the reviews are like 2.3. Now, most of the people are like, well, they didn't support my argument. This guy, this local guide with 333 reviews gave the second DCA a single star. And it says, absolutely insane what this court is doing in the Maya Kowalski case. They need to be investigated. Massive corruption here. Judges taking bribes. People being paid off by Johns Hopkins. I've lost all hope in the U.S. judicial system. Vote every one of these people out. They're criminals and deserve to be in prison. So, and there were other negative reviews, but again, a lot of it was what they found for the other guy, right? But I was not expecting this. I think the judges did a terrific job of, again, doing their homework, coming in prepared, and asking on-point questions. There was nothing vague about their questions. They were about issues of law. And that's really what the appellate process is about, is you don't get to re-litigate the facts of the case. You are only there to argue about the application of the law. And I thought they did a fantastic job of showing up ready and asking really smart questions. I will tell you, no matter how this is ruled, obviously, I'm favorable to the Kowalski family. I'm not going to hide that. Everybody knows it. But no matter how this is decided, I know that I believe that the hearing was conducted extraordinarily well.
I thought so too. I would be very surprised if they don't deny this this appeal. I would be very surprised. I didn't think that J. Hatch put forward anything that made any sense that could be appealed, that could be granted. I didn't hear any kind of argument that the judges didn't shoot down while he was standing there. And Tanner, when he got up to talk, I mean, this guy.
Yeah. The only thing that they really argued on the law was that Chapter 39 was misapplied. But again, if they're looking for Chapter 39 to be redefined, they need to be.
They need to go to the. Yeah, they need to go to the legislature. That's the legislature's job. Yeah. I'm actually not a proponent of this immunity garbage. I don't think anybody should get it. I think everybody should be subject to if you do bad things. Like, for instance, when Tubby, what's his name? The other lawyer. Sorry.
Mr.
When he
Stikelether.
said, Stikelether, when he said that if you're going to accuse somebody of child abuse, you better be right. I agree with that statement. And he's saying, oh, no, that's not how child welfare is. We just you get to report anything for any reason, and they have to take it seriously. Well, that needs to change in this country because that is not okay. It is not okay to falsely, and I believe they knew they were falsely reporting this. They had to trump up these allegations. I believe that Sally Smith, she knew on some level that what she was doing was underhanded because DCF had already said no to her. And so she had to make it up. She had to make something bigger for them in order to get them to give her the power to harass this family. And she enjoys putting her power over others. That's what she enjoys doing. That's the kind of person she is. Look at her history. She's put people in jail, innocent fathers in jail for the fake shaken baby syndrome, which doesn't even exist anymore. And so the idea that people like her should get immunity, no, I bristle at that. I don't want immunity for people who do that. I think that each case is its own thing. And if they did find evidence, I mean, if it was the idea of a good faith basis, though, Joe.
Yeah.
I don't think any of this was done with good faith.
Yeah.
And how do you, and that's such a broad term, right? Well, I had a good faith basis to believe it because she was in a ketamine coma, and that seems crazy.
Yeah. Well, so as someone who had responsibilities as a practicing OBGYN, as a mandatory reporter, I will tell you that immunity is critical to the veracity of the reporting process, but it doesn't have an unlimited blanket, right? And again,
well, it seems to. It seems to.
Well,
getting around it is very hard. And I thought that so
Yeah.
much of the Chapter 39 stuff that was kept out of the case should have been allowed. Like, for instance, the fact that Hunter was the same lawyer who was fighting for the juvenile case should have been disclosed to the jury. That this man right here has an interest for some reason in being right because he was the lawyer who was taking her away from her parents in the juvenile court. How could they use him in this too? I felt like that was a huge conflict that wasn't disclosed.
So would that, following your argument, would that also be a reason for them to not want to settle?
Because of the immunity?
No, because Mr. Hunter was involved.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. His ego is involved. He can't admit that he's wrong. And I can't believe Jay Hatch allows these lawyers, especially Attorney Hunter, to make these calls, to do this strategy, which appears to be more about covering his behind than protecting Jay Hatch. He was in court. I read those juvenile court transcripts. Heinous.
Yeah, he was not happy. I went over. I actually, when I got to the courthouse, Jules was in the lobby and she was waiting for me. She knew I had told her a couple weeks ago that I planned on attending, so she was waiting because she didn't want to sneak in by herself. But Ethan Shapiro was in the lobby with someone from his firm, and we had a very pleasant conversation. Talked about, we did not talk about the trial, but we talked about kind of the state of healthcare and healthcare M&A and all the things that are going on, what have you. We had probably 3, 4, 5 minute conversation. It was very pleasant. My exchange with Mr. Hunter was not as pleasant.
I bet.
But it was odd. There was almost like a reunion kind of feel to the room during the break. Certainly, once the judges came in, because they took a 15-minute recess before they heard 3 other cases, then took a 15-minute recess, and then heard the Jay Hatch appeal. But during that break, I mean, it was kind of nice to see folks that, you know, you spend a lot of time with, and on both sides, and, you know, so.
Well, I I have a hard out at 11:30, which gives me 15 minutes approximately to get through the super chat. So we're going to do that.
Fire away. I can stay with you for a little while.
All right, cool. All right. Let's see. We have Mathis Grease who said, thanks for the 5. Can you show or forward Dr. Joe the Team Maya answer brief in the form of a song? I had emailed you on February 12th. I promise you it will be worth it. I did just forward that to Dr. Joe. He has it in his inbox right now. And I did look over the lyrics while we were sitting here because and they are very funny.
Mathis always has great stuff. And and Mathis, you can always email me at askcmodrjoe@gmail.com. askcmodrjoe@gmail.com. I am around, and by the way, I am coming back. We had
good.
The Corcoran family was very happy to kick 2024 to the curb. It was a very challenging year on a multitude of fronts, but I expect to be back on the YouTube channel in early March.
Good.
Yeah, with a little bit more structure than before. I mean, candidly, Megan, if it weren't for you, I never would have opened up a YouTube channel. And I truly was just kind of, I was the old guy wandering around the mall, having no idea what I was shopping for, right?
Oh, you did great.
So I'm trying to be a little bit more sustainable. But it was, I needed to step away to deal with a lot of very significant issues. But we'll talk about that later. But Mathis, you always offer great questions. So
and hey, Joe, thanks for the $4 super sticker. Appreciate that. Mel Klomp, thanks for the 5. Thank you both for all you do. Well, you're welcome. We try. Cynic in Chief, thanks for the 10. Kurt, Uncivil Law, thought they would argue the self-deletion and the damage awards, but they only partially argued the first and didn't talk about the second. They tried relitigating immunity instead. I know it was a very bizarre thing, but again, I don't think they had much to go on.
Yeah.
Matthew agrees, thanks for the 5. You need to prove 1, the elements of insurance fraud, and 2, specific damages therefrom. Judge Carroll reduced it to $1 because no specific damages were proven. I don't know how damages of having to pay this outrageous amount. I don't know how that's not a specific damage, but okay, whatever. I think the Kowalskis would be happy with the judgment they got if they could just get it. General Rickles, thanks for the 5. PhD level breadstick grifting right there. I'm learning. I have my favorite.
That must be insider stuff. I don't understand.
Breadsticks. We that all stems from Dave Neal. We were covering the Laura Owens case, and he was joking. People were sending super chats, and he was like screaming to his wife off camera, going, "Honey, we're going to Olive Garden. We're getting the breadsticks." And we
I love it.
Ever since then, we called it breadstick money. I don't know. It just stuck.
Funny. Well played.
I have my favorites. Thanks for the 2. No broken thumbs today. That's right. Hit that like button. Smack it. Smack it like you want to smack J Hatch and all those nurses on the 7th floor coven with the dyed black hair. I will never forget those characters. Matthew, thanks again for another 5. The pretrial settlement offer was for $17.5 million, an amount surpassed by the interest on the judgment that occurred in 2024 alone. As of February 12th, $20.5 million.
And Mathis, I don't know where you got the number from, but I would challenge that based on what I've heard. I think that is an overestimate.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought that their offer was just a total insult. Yeah. Claire Fries, thanks for the 20. Here's my mom shame money. Nice. Nothing like a little mom shaming. French's mom, GB, thanks for the 6 for your great work. Tell us, Megan, LOL. Thank you. Karaoke Nut, thanks for the 2. Breadstick sauce.
Love it.
Hey, Joe, thanks for the 5. Brought to you today by my toes because my thumbs are broken. Oh, square bullet points. How dare you, sir? How dare you? I can't stand square bullet points. They know it. They keep putting them in there anyway. Ryan Poole, thanks for the 2. No AIDS, please. Well, nobody wants that. Mathis Grease, thanks for the 5. Nelson was technically a FELA case, but the first DCA's holding on suicide from uncontrollable impulse is generally applicable. Case law favors Team Maya. I would agree. Annie Soros, thanks for the 2. Ad revenue breadsticks. Thank you very much. And Sticky Widget, thanks for the 5. My late fee. And
You're the best audience. Oh
I
my
know.
God.
I know. They're so good. They're so
I
good.
love my advocates. Don't get me wrong. But your audience has your wicked sense of humor, Megan.
They sure do.
Yeah.
They sure do. It's funny how we attract
like
attracts like.
Pets start to look like their owners, or owners start to look like their pets.
I start to look like my chat.
I didn't realize that it worked in YouTube. And by the way, your hair is much better today than it was on the live stream.
Yes. I was.
God, you were.
I had all the clips everywhere. Well, my hair. It has a mind of its own, and it was wet. And when it's wet, I have to do things to it, or it's going to look terrible. And it was like I had no time to dry my hair and also do the stream, because remember, I had just found out like a half an hour before that it was live, and I was like, crap.
Yeah. I thought I was watching a Jaclyn Hill makeup YouTube.
Hey, we do the best we can here. I do the best I can. Sometimes the hair is a whole thing. You know this. There are good days. There are bad days.
Yeah.
All right, I got to run because I've got an appointment. But Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show and hanging out with us again. And I would love to have you on again soon. So when you're on your way back to YouTube, let me know so that we can do a whole welcome back to YouTube for Dr. Joe. And
I'd love that.
Maybe we'll set it up so that I have you on before, and then I can redirect everybody over to your first either video or stream, whatever you're planning on doing.
That would be really awesome. Thanks very much, Megan.
Yeah.
It's great reconnecting, and we really have to keep the Kowalski family in our thoughts and in our hearts. With all the stuff that's going on with Greg and Nick, unfortunately, there's just a lot of stuff it's just more stress. And I'm still friendly with both, and I tell each of them, I understand your fight. And personally, I'm Switzerland here, but let's keep in mind the reason we came together was for the Kowalski family, and they still have to be our primary focus. So
I agree. That whole thing makes me really sad, actually. And I haven't, well, we'll talk about that at another date. Sticky Widget gifted 5 Megan Fox memberships. Thank you so much. Mathis says, to be clear, how about you pay my client $17.5 million to settle? Was an offer by Greg to J Hatch, according to an interview. Counteroffer was $1 million or so. Oh, yeah. That's incredible. If that really happened, if he really offered to let them get away with 17 million, boy, are they stupid for not taking it. It appears to just have turned into a grudge match, like instead of being reasonable with your client's money, they're going to cost their clients so much more, because I believe that jury verdict is going to stand.
And especially on the heels of the Take Care of Maya Netflix success, right?
Oh, yeah. Squid Pro Quo, thanks for the 2 for Megan's new hairdryer fee. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to leave you with that hilarious clip of the appeals that I did of J Hatch just telling on themselves. And I'll see you later, Joe.
Sounds great, Megan. Thanks very much, and thanks to your audience.
All right, bye-bye.
Hospital that kidnapped and tortured a little girl in order to kill her mother. He caused the suicide of a non-patient, engage in insurance fraud, and steal from our families. Dr. Sally Smith is going around and asking questions, and she's rude, and she's weird, and she's got this raspy cigarette voice, and I'm trying to clean up my child, and she's asking me all these questions that don't really seem related to what we're there for. That's core investigative child protection activity, to separate a child from a parent. It is always traumatic, it is always awful, it is always terrible. And that ingredient is present in every single child protective action that the state and pediatricians and social workers ever take to separate a child from a parent. It is always traumatic, it is always awful, it is always terrible. Fierce and intense blowback. People are angry about this, and if this is allowed to go to a jury will be angry about this. And the testimony at trial amounted to, if you're going to accuse someone of child abuse, you had better be right. And the entire history of child welfare law is that is fundamentally wrong. These are always awful, terrible, raw, sensitive. This is a hospital that lies, cheats, and steals from its patients. It's rotten to the core.